noma singesafika ngesikhathi kodwa singenza ukuthi abanye bafike ngo-12 ebusuku emakhaya abanye bafike ngo-5 so sizame nje ukuthi sibambe isikhathi so ngizocela nje ukuthi angazi baphozwe banginike indication because sesiqala manje iprogram ye plenary kambe ngiyakubona awuthinta impela nje ngabiza umuntu la kanti akakabuyi elunchini usekhona ugcwaba usekhona around kade ngicile ngibona usihlala ukhona wona okay Qina msebenzi qina. Manje ngiyanibona ukuthi beyikahle le manje senifuna ukusihlukanisa phakathi. Kanti manje angifuni isihlukane phakathi siyabasebenzi. Uma yabasebenzi kufanele babumbane. Manje angifuni nami ungene ekukhulumeni. Oze kuthiwe ngahlukanisa abasebenzi kanti ngifuna abasebenzi aba-united. Welcome back, colleagues, and thank you very much for trying to keep time. We're now getting to a point where the federations, COSATU, FEDUSA, and NATO will then, as agreed in the planning meetings, just to remind the House that the theme of this 2021 Workers' Parliament is restructure our economy for decent jobs and retrenchments, promote safe workplaces and health communities as we advance herd immunity against COVID-19. What we are going to do now is that we will call the federations. You are going to give in minutes, I'm sure it's communicated to those who are going to be speaking on behalf of the federations. Because now, ngizosebenza njengosomlomo, lapha legislature ma uno 5 minutes, uno 5 minutes. So ke kuzosebenzana kanjalo la. Ayikho le ndlela yokucabangela. Ngoba kukhona into ekhalayo ethi cha usudlulile emzuzwini obuyinikiwe. So sizocela sibambisane kanjalo. I hope everyone who's in the speakers list is in the house, because there might be an issue if you are not in the house. I can see someone who's not here, probably by the time speak again, he will be here. Oh no, okay, I take that back. Our first speaker is going to be Mr. Sthembiso Dlamini from COSATU for 5 minutes.
Greetings, colleagues. Let me just say all protocol observed. I will address the issue, or will sponsor the resolution on state of the municipality and the mass dismissal of workers. We note the following, that the municipality are the critical sphere of government, which is closer to the people, and that makes the municipality's critical structure of service delivery. The municipality is always going to deteriorate if the service delivery is going.
We siyabonisana kungcono uze ngapha ngaphambili so that we can all see you. Ngisimisile isikhathi sakho. Ungathi ngikudlela isikhathi. Ngisibambile. So senzele ukuthi kube nama recordings abe kahle vele uzokhuluma kuloko.
Amandla qina msebenzi qina Let me just continue in saying, we note the following, that the municipalities are a critical sphere of government, which are closer to the people, that make municipality as a crucial structure for service delivery. The state of the municipality is deteriorating, and if this continue to, the service delivery to the people will be compromised. This causes inability for the various municipalities to render the service, even the basic service such as water, housing, road infrastructure, electricity, cutting the veg and waste collection. The continuing failure of the municipality to receive clean audit and allegation of corruption, the incapacity of management to resolve issues or workers' dispute, which has led to a massive dismissal of workers, e.g., in the following municipalities, Newcastle, Ugu, and King Cetshwayo. The rate of Newcastle municipality as a West-run municipality, the level of arrogance by the political officials and senior managers of the municipalities, the factionalization of the workers and some managers and political administrators to develop an interest on matters of the union and divide workers. We believe the service delivery to all is the key pillar of democracy and democratic government. It is a right for our people. We resolve this matter will be enhanced all municipality mandate to deliver service delivery to the people. The monies of the municipalities are public monies. Therefore, there must be a full accountability to those who are handling it or using it. We therefore resolve that the government must take and implement decisive action against those involved in corruption and those that are receiving qualified and disclaimer audit report and wasteful expenditures. That the investigation report on mass dismissal of workers be released within a week after sitting of this parliament. The immediate reinstatement retrospectively of the workers that were dismissed unfairly. The Newcastle municipality be held accountable for their bad running of the municipality and decisive action be taken against implicated municipalities or officials. And lastly, we must, in 2 months from now, we must convene a local government summit to deal with the challenge that are faced in the municipality and map the way forward. Amandla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dlamini, and you were right on time. We are now going to call Mr. Tumsan Kumalo from Fedusa for 3 minutes.
Masibingelele basebenzi. Angazi noma kufanele ngisho ngithi somlomo ngoba uthe usihlalo. Asibingelele ke somlomo. Sibingelele ke zonke ihambele ikhona. Sinjengofedusa uma sibuka isihloko noma sibuka itimu okuyiyona ewumsusa walento esikhuluma ngayo noma uma sibheka izwe as a whole. Sibuka ukuthi this is not the first incident that make a globe, not a country, because this is a national pandemic which caused a huge problems to everyone. As we in a labor, as FEDUSA and other affiliates, or as a labor sector, I hope I'm not being captured. Let me start by saying this can cause a problem to everyone, every family, every community, every society, even the globe as a whole. I want to quote a speech of one of the British Prime Minister, Mr. Sir Winston Churchill, when there was a Second World War. When you look at the problem that was arising on that time, I quote, "We shall fight on the beaches, on the ground, on the field, on the streets, on the hills." And okay. I say right here, ngiyabonga. I think somlomo ubambile 2 minutes one because I have got. Then when he said this words, the time or the situation on that time, they were in the crisis of a Second World War that was harming millions and millions of people. The economy was disrupted so badly. And now in our times, we have got problems in a retrenchment of our workers. It's not because this retrenchment is caused by anyone, it's caused by the pandemic. So, on this theme that was being pronounced by the federations, as we, FEDUSA, we look at how we are going to change the situation around this time. We have got a lot of sectoral determinations that is being passed by our government. But the most fundamental things that we look at is the skill development. If all sectors have got this skill development implementation in place, we hope and we think and we believe that this retrenchment that is causing a lot of people unemployment will be reduced, because all sector, even the private sector or the public sector, we have got an aspect of that department so that we can outsource that works to another countries or foreigners, so that we can change all this, or we can reduce this retrenchment that is causing on our country. I thank you, Somlom.
Thank you very much. About to Bukalela, 2 minutes. Ngiyabonga. Ntunga, isikhulumi sethu esilandelayo, uMiss Zanele Gumede from Kosatu for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on the honoring of collective bargaining. We note that the reneging and somersaulting of government and private employers on agreements and collective bargaining is one of the greatest threats facing workers. Collective bargaining is the cornerstone of harmonious, productive labor market peace and democracy. Workers' rights to engage in the bargaining and negotiation with employers has always been the key, and parties are always called to negotiate in good faith. The ever-rising cost of living, whilst their salaries and benefits of workers are deliberately downgraded, thereby impacting immensely on their ability to sustain livelihood. The state is the main employer and contributor to employment opportunities, and private sector employers take their cue from the state and its institution. We also note that the vacant funded positions are not filled, whilst some in the same time, the employer claiming that they do not have financial resources to increase salaries. We believe that reneging of the state in the bargaining agreement has caused the private sector to develop an attitude towards workers during bargaining. Therefore, they are now refusing to increase salaries, citing the government as an example. That it is the government that forced labor to accept multi-agreement on the basis that it wants to budget, and it's the very same government that says it has no funds to pay the last leg of the agreement. We also believe that this move by government is informed by the neoliberal agenda, which is against our resolve on building the capacity of the state and government self-proclaim of being a developmental state. This will cause low workers' morale and therefore contribute to low production, poor service delivery, and ultimately contribute to the ever-declining economy. This further undermines the government's self-proclaimed assertion of being the developmental state. We therefore resolve that, 1, the government and business must ensure that collective agreements are honored and the bargaining decisions. Protection of bargaining rights by all social partners in order to transform our economy for the benefit of all is sustained. Build centralized collective bargaining across the sectors and industries. Build centralized collective bargaining across sectors and industries in order to protect vulnerable workers. Bargaining councils, CCMA, and labor courts must ensure protection of hard-won gains of employees and collective agreements. The government to implement Resolution 1 of 2018 collective agreement and begin to negotiate in good faith on the current negotiation underway. We demand also the immediate filling of all the vacant funded posts as part of alleviating unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker from Fedusa is Mr. Spiwe Msomi.
Amandla. Thank you, Chairperson. Our Honorable Speaker and all the delegates in the House, I greet you all. In short, based on the theme that we have been given, restructuring of economy for decent jobs and retrenchment to promote sanate workplace and healthy community as we advance ahead to immunize against COVID-19. When we're looking at this theme, looking at us or looking at the healthcare workers as the front line of health and safety of our country. Workers experience the stress when they deemed of their job are excessive and greater than their capacity to cope within them. In addition to the mental health problems, workers suffer from the prolonged stress can go on to develop the serious physical health problems. Employees' perception of lack of the psychological support from their organization can lead to the serious and to the severe compromise of the service delivery within our country. That can cost the life of our fellow employees and at large to the lives of our community that we are trying to protect. As Federation, we plea to our government to take it seriously, the demands of the healthcare workers, in order to see to it that whatever they need in order to render the service to the community as the front line and the pillars of health in our country, they must always take serious, and they must also change the way and the manner in which they approach our demands as employees in order for us to have a safer country and in order to avoid unnecessary dispute and unnecessary delays in terms of the needs that are acquired by our fellow employee. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Msomi. Isikhulumi sethu esilandelayo uMiss Lonwabo Kakane Inatu for 10 minutes. Akubhala uMiss ke lana. But ngeke sazi.
Somlomo iphutha leli.
For 10 minutes.
Ndivumeleni ndithi nqanga nentsibazayo okusho ukuthi ke all protocol observed. Somlomo ngicabanga ukuthi iphutha leli lokufaka uMiss lapha ya elenziwe ke ngama computer esikubiza ngokuba ubuxhakaxhaka bale mihla. Amandla. Comrade, thanks a lot. Based on our theme, as NACTU, we will just come in the resolution that we have, engaged and alluded on. But I think it is very imperative for us to understand the background and the theme that is being articulated in this Workers' Parliament. Our theme says restructuring our economy for decent jobs. I just want to draw attention into these critical words, restructuring and economy. We know that when we talk about economy, we are carefully speaking about the state of the country. And I think the pandemic fast-tracked the issue of everyone to understand our status in terms of our economic. Then as NACTU, what we said in terms of addressing this item of the restructuring our economy for decent jobs and ending retrenchment, promote safe working place and healthy communities as we advance herd immuno system against COVID. We call the government to nationalize all strategic sectors of the economy, which includes mining, banks, and insurances companies. That will be the only way to restructure our economy in South Africa. Actually, this is not a new wording. We remember since we got the democracy in 1994, all the economic policies, not to mention so many, but starting from RDP, GIE, ASGISA, today we are on NDP. They are trying by all means to restructure this particular economy for decent jobs. What we are saying in this, by saying the government must nationalize this particular strategic sector, this kind of nationalization is going to help us in terms of creating the decent jobs. For instance, we've seen clearly that during the COVID-19, most of the companies that are nationalized by the government, though the COVID-19 hit them, but they not hit like the private sectors. Hence, we are saying economic is the resources, is the available resources that we have. So it is our call, and we want to be emphatic into this regard, because the government as a regulator has the power, and they can regulate this particular nationalization. Secondly, comrade, I will just go into the point of ending retrenchment. If the government can help us to nationalize these strategic economic strategies, automatically the ending of retrenchment will be possible. How? It will be possible because it will give a hint that as NACTU, we call the government also to amend certain part of these pieces of legislation, such as Labor Relations Act Section 189. We call the government to amend these particular pieces of legislation, and also in conjunction with the Section 41 of the Basic Conditions of Employment. This, it will ensure and it will make harder for the employers to use the very same pieces of legislation to execute the retrenchment. So what are we saying? To end Somlomo, lela tafula lelia liyandiphazamisa, diyaliva, to protect.
Mpemba, siyacela bakwethu.
Thank you. Because, comrade, we are saying in terms of ending retrenchment, we call for the government to amend Section 189 in conjunction with Section 41 of the Labor Relations Act, 41 of the Basic Conditions of Employment, to ensure that the employers must not easily retrench employees using these very acts. Comrade, these acts are being used not fairly. Abantu bayagxothwa because lama act athi umqashi uma engenayo imali noma for some reason akasebenzise lama act ukukhokhela abasebenzi ama peanuts. We are saying the government must regulate to increase these particular sections. And also, when we talk about the issue of health and safety, the issue of promoting safe working place, What are we saying? We are saying our current Health and Safety Act does not assist employees in various workplaces. Therefore, we call for the Health and Safety Act amendment also, because to give workplace health and safety committees some powers to call employer accountable for non-compliance to Health and Safety Act. We have a beautiful Health and Safety Act in our disposal at work, but what is said is that whenever there is a committee, they will find some discrepancies in terms of the conduct of the employer. But the committee, it doesn't have the powers. So we call for the amendment. Comrade, as NACTU, in the current moment, in the current situation, it is our plea and a call. It just confirms the previous presentations in terms of the healthy, that as NACTU, we are saying the government should invest more in our own people. When I say in our own people, we have institutions in South Africa, scientifically, also the indigenous. So we are saying the government before, for instance, the government is planning for the roads, and it has been proven that COVID-19 now and again is changing itself. We get another variant after another. So we call for the government to invest so much in our South African scholars, if I may put it like that, so that we trust that they can come up with a vaccine that is going to help us as we promote that all people must abide in the regulations that are still here, putting masks, sanitizing each and every time. This is our submission as NACTU. Thank you, comrades.
Enkosi mhlekazi wami nxe ngokukubiza ngomisi isithethi sethu esilandelayo ngumisi Zodwa Mzindle Khosathu for 5 minutes.
Greetings to honorable members. Ngibingelele kubasebenzi. Wathinta abafazi. I-point esiza nalo, it's on the issue of the farm workers. Noting the plight of farm workers and the farm dwellers even during the democratic dispensation. Research indicates that of 843 farm dwellers households, data on the current living condition of livelihood was collected on 15.3% of the farm dwellers population in the area. The paper demonstrates that farm dwellers are fragmented, agricultural, precariat subject to push and pull drivers of mobility that leave them with a precarious hold on rural farm dwellers. Women make up a large percentage of the poor, particularly in the rural areas. The transformation of economy doesn't involve the active participation of empowerment of women. In KwaZulu-Natal, farm dwellers continue to put pressure on government and illegitimate landowners. In this regard, the Farm Dwellers and Labour Tenant Platform held in Newcastle on 21 to 22 October 2017, the representatives of the different parties concurred with each other on many challenges facing farm workers and land dwellers, and further committed themselves to improve coordination, increase accountability to farm workers and communities, and develop a common plan of action to address the challenges. We believe that the gender struggle, in particular the women's struggle, cannot be separated from the broader struggle of land. Therefore, women forms a significant proportion of the struggle of farm workers. The achievement scored by workers on the victory of the minimum wage is but one of the testimonies that our commitment to addressing the plight of farm workers and land dwellers go beyond the theoretical rhetoric, thus providing that indeed we implement our conference resolution. The full and coherent implementation of this victory will bring us closer to our long-standing commitment to alleviate poverty both in the countryside and in the urban areas equitable. The farm workers and land dwellers issues are at the center of our campaigns because they are mostly affected by the poverty and oppression. It is important to mobilize the communities to support the class action and supplement this with local campaigns to secure tenure, protect graves and burial sites, as well as improve access to basic services such as water, electricity for those living on commercial farms. It is important to encourage and lead engagement of maximum participation of farm workers and land dwellers in our struggle in order to deepen class consciousness. Consistently pursuing this agenda will build a formidable force dismantle the capitalist system. The approach taken by the government on land restitution is very slow, given the targets of 30% that was set for 2014, which only achieved only 9%. As COSAS, we resolved that the speed implementation of land expropriation without compensation as the only proper and available option that can address these challenges amicably. Government to develop concrete operationalization plan for land compensation without compensation, the creation of tenure security for communal farmers, especially women, investigate different forms of financing and vesting of private property rights to land reforms, beneficiaries that does not hamper beneficiaries with a high debt burden. We must also deal with the scourge of gender-based violence. We must ratify the ILO Convention 190, which speaks of decisive action on issue of gender-based violence, and we therefore call for a speedy implementation. That the government and labor develop a decisive program involving all relevant departments to conduct inspection on the conditions of farm workers and take necessary steps to improve their conditions. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much, Mhlonishwa Zodwa. Our next speaker, Mhlonishwa Ms. Tembeka Twala from Fedusa for 10 minutes.
Greetings to the Honorable Speaker, to the Chairperson, greetings to the traditional leaders present and to the Mayor of Alfred Duma. The state of our country and the economy is a cause for concern for all stakeholders, government, trade unions, and private sector. Of even greater concern is the path of economy that has taken over the past, the growth has stalled to extremely low levels. Unemployment has breached the psychological 40% mark, and social inequality has reached the frightening proportions. The COVID-19 restrictions has come to top of a very bad situation. As Fedusa, we appeal to the government to take urgent steps to restructure the economy and return it to pre-COVID levels as a strategic starting plan. We are prepared to work with the government to reverse the grim quarterly labor force numbers that were published by Statistics South Africa in February this year, which showed that up to 210,000 jobs were lost in KwaZulu-Natal in the last quarter of 2020, compared with only 66,000 jobs that were created over the same period. The tourism industry, one of the mainstays in our provincial economy, was badly hit by COVID-19 crisis, which saw Fairmont Zimbali Hotel put up for sale and the iconic Hilton Hotel temporarily shut down. We therefore welcome the national government's allocation of 20 million towards the KZN Tourism Relief Fund that will prioritize the majority of Black-owned tourism businesses. The important part of the economy to this province cannot be overemphasized, and it is in this regard we welcome the government's plan to upgrade and modernize infrastructure at Durban and Richards Bay ports. As organized labor, we are acutely aware that there can be no jobs on a dead planet, and the government's plan for just transition to a low-carbon energy and collection of greenhouse gas data for priority sectors in the province has our full support. We particularly welcome the rehabilitation of more than 86,000 hectares of land through the Land Grace and IASP programs by EDTEA and Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife. Done properly within the occupational health and safety that factor in COVID-19 safety protocols, a restructured economy is a strategic tool to stem the current wave of retrenchment, create decent jobs on a large scale. However, the fire hazard that erupted in several government buildings during the lockdown jeopardized the lives of frontline health workers. This incident highlighted the need to be vigilant and upgrade provincial occupational health and safety systems. In this regard, we welcome a long overdue gazetting of Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Bill for public submission. What we would like to see as FEDUSA are interventions that will promote labor-intensive growth, champion inclusivity by lowering barriers to economic participation without regard to social class and economy, that can compete successfully in the global marketplace. A lot of good work has already been done in the form of sectorial master plans spearheaded by the Department of Trade and Industry. However, these plans need to be aligned with the National Development Plan framework in order to retain the strategic focus. In the context, the master plan framework for network industries such as energy, transport, telecommunication will be vital. The COVID-19 crisis has forcefully brought home long-standing challenges in the industries, including absence of effective economic regulations, old and poorly maintained infrastructure, a lack of access to quality services, and poorly managed state-owned companies. Underpinning these challenges has been the endless electricity crisis at Eskom, which is its spiraling debt. As FEDUSA, we would like to appeal to the government to provide agent policy clarity regarding the Eskom crisis. Otherwise, all restructuring plans will be in vain and the economy will sink into deeper problems. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chwala. Isikhulumi sethu esilandelayo Mr. Phumlani Duma from COSATU for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Program Director. Let me greet all leaders present here. Nabakhosi. Ngabe ngisachitha isikhathi, Program Director, and indicate what COSATU sent us to do here. COSATU on education is noting the following: that one of the most important areas of concern in our country is education. Without an educated population, a country cannot progress, not only in terms of economic development, but also socially. There are many challenges faced by the sector, from schools, TVET colleges to universities. 4 years after the announcement by the government on free education, government has failed to implement the issue of free, accessible and inclusive education. The current budgetary cuts which impact on quality education, which impact negatively on quality public education. The amount of money that the KZN Department of Education spends on hiring external lawyers to deal with internal disciplinary cases of workers. The shortages of teachers in KwaZulu-Natal, and the fact that some schools did not write some subjects in the first term of the year, 2021. The education curriculum system is not addressing our socio-economic needs as a country. The University Institutional Autonomy is not yet abolished, and the Higher Education Act is not yet amended. Majority of workers in these institutions are still casualized and outsourced. TVET colleges are still faced with the stigma of the past, with the community still looking down on local colleges as an option for post-schooling. Funding models used in universities and colleges have not yet been transformed to better suit the society. The middle class income is still not catered for in terms of funding. A large portion of students are left out with the current models. This is the major cause for the fees must fall campaigns that we see every day. The slow pace in which the higher education sector is transforming the qualifications output is problematic for the country. It is one of the reasons we are still lacking people with skills, and more specifically specialized skills. The current qualifications are not updated to ensure labor market relevance. Sector-relevant qualifications for TVET lecturers, colleges are still being treated as glorified high schools when it comes to the qualification requirements of lecturers. These requirements do not enhance the transfer of skills, which should be a priority. COSATU therefore believes that education is an inalienable basic human right that must not be a commodified privilege. Part of the problem is tied to budget cuts, but there are also administrative and corruption issues in this system. We therefore resolved as follows, Chairperson, to put an end on all outsourcing in all institutions of higher learning in the province. The Department of Education, KZN, stopped the outsourcing of internal disciplinary processes through developing internal capacity, as it already has to deal with disciplinary cases. Provincial Treasurer re-look at the financial allocation to the Department of Education, as the current one is not working, as it leads to many programs or projects not being paid, as the monthly allocation given to the department is always not enough, thus compromising quality teaching and learning. KZN Department of Education invests more of its skills levy to develop workers through developmental and training programs, so that workers remain relevant even during this time of COVID-19. For the amendment of the Higher Education Act and the abolishment of institutional autonomy, that NSFAS offices must be independent at higher education institutions to avoid corruption, to open access to free education for all, for the updating of the curriculum to suit the skills required by the economy and market requirements, The decision once taken by the executive to task Human Resource Development Council to create stability and harmonize institutions of higher learning must be taken forward, considering violent protests in some of our institutions of higher learning. We want to thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mtombeni. Our